Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots Monday Morning, where we react to the Sunday morning news shows that we watch so that you don't have to. I'm Katie Halper with Useful Idiots.
I'm Aaron Maté. Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for being here. It's great to start the week with you. I don't know if we should call the show this week Monday Morning, because last week, with all the abundance of joy at the DNC, maybe this should be Monday Joining.
I'm sorry, I got knocked off for a second. What did I miss, Aaron?
Oh.
Very sorry.
I was making a hilarious pun, which was saying that this, I don't know if this is Monday morning, but after the DNC last week, this should be Monday Joining, because we're just
Nice.
feeling the joy
Yeah,
from the DNC.
you're right.
And, you know, Katie, I mean, there's so many moments to choose from. Like, what was your most joyful moment from the DNC last week?
I think my most joyful moment was when Kamala Harris promised that America's military would be the most lethal in the world.
Yep.
I like
that was
that
joyful.
a lot.
That was very joyful. Yeah. There's so much joy in lethality, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. So much joy.
In fact, they could have called the whole conference, the convention could have been called Lethal Joy.
Lethal Joy. That's a great name. I mean, their joy is lethal.
It is,
yes, yeah. Well, mine has to be, I felt so much joy when they wouldn't allow on a Palestinian American speaker for even a minute to endorse Kamala Harris and
that was beautiful.
Issue a really watered down speech. Like, even a Palestinian saying, we're not going to criticize you, we're going to go up there and say we support Kamala Harris. Like, nope, sorry, you being Palestinian will call attention to the fact that we're currently helping to mass murder Palestinians. So sorry.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's awkward.
The joy. What a joyful moment that was.
What a joyful moment. Yeah. Joyful, joyful exclusion, joyful erasure. Well, should we start off with the Meet the Press?
Let's do it.
As always. All right, let's kick it off.
Good Sunday morning. The 2024 campaign is now in its final sprint to Election Day, with just 72 days to go. And this week, Vice President Kamala Harris made history, becoming the first woman of color to accept a major party's presidential nomination.
On behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another, on behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be president.
On Wednesday, Harris will return to the campaign trail with new momentum, kicking off a battleground state bus tour with running mate Tim Walz in Georgia. This is still an incredibly tight race, and Harris has the burden of being a sitting vice president who will be held responsible for the events happening on the administration's watch. In Chicago, top Democrats laid out the election's high stakes.
The torch has been passed. Now it is up to all of us to fight for the America we believe in.
The torch has been passed, but that's what Obama says. But if he was more accurate, he would say the torch has been yanked, because Joe Biden did not want to give up that torch.
True.
He did not want to do it. He held on until, you know, the last moment that he could. And Obama and Nancy Pelosi basically pried it from his cold, dead hands.
Exactly.
That's what happened.
Actually,
yes.
I think we could call this whole convention or campaign Lethal Joy, yanking the torch.
Yanking the torch.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, it will be a fight.
In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious.
I want to know who's going to tell him that the job he's currently seeking might just be one of those black jobs.
I think that was the only good line I heard from the entire convention. There's actually a good line. Respect to whoever wrote it. It was funny. It was a good burn on Donald Trump, because Trump at the Biden debate talked about how immigrants are taking black jobs. Great joke, great delivery by Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
I think that's the like only highlight that I can remember from the DNC. Everything else was.
It was a little confusing because I felt like it made it seem like it hadn't been a black job before, which obviously it was with Obama. But that's I guess I'm overanalyzing it, I think.
Yeah, that's I mean, again, I give him credit for this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good joke, good execution. Well done.
It was well executed. Yeah. Yeah.
Democrats tried to reach out to Republicans and independents, bringing a number of them on stage.
I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know I promise to be a president for all Americans.
And no matter who you are, Kamala Harris is going to stand up and fight for your freedom to live the life that you want to lead.
How can a party claim?
Again, they're talking about inclusion. They're there for everybody at a convention where they refuse to allow on a Palestinian American voice deliberately. Okay. So it's hard to preach the message of inclusion when at your own convention, you're going out of your way to exclude Palestinians just because they're of the ethnic group that you're currently helping to exterminate. So it's not a good start to Kamala's unity message, I don't think.
Right. It's like no matter who you are, asterisk does not apply to Palestinians.
No. Yeah. And of course, here to extol the virtues of inclusion and reaching out to Republicans is Congressmember Adam Kinzinger, a Republican, a neocon Republican. He's certainly included because Democrats love appealing to neocons because they become the party of neocons in many ways.
One of Aaron's faves.
To be patriotic if it idolizes a man who tried to overthrow a free and fair election.
We're all Americans, and together, let's all choose Kamala Harris.
Harris and former.
Just a side note, I wouldn't have the confidence that Oprah has to, hold that one syllable for that long. It takes a lot of confidence that I just don't. Maybe that's what makes her so successful. It's just to hold that syllable for that long. Kamala Harris, that's confidence right there that I admire.
It also requires engaging the abs.
Yes. So impressive from Oprah. Yeah.
And it was almost like singing, and her voice isn't very good. So that's another point that she gets for confidence. Wait, guys, I'm sorry. Jean, who is a patriot and a useful idiot, wrote that there are 1,304 watching and 370 likes. Guys, how is this possible? We got someone watching from Algeria. I mean, that's always a sign of success. So let's get that like up. I'm sorry to do it so early. To be fair, I didn't remind you. Let's see, where are we at now? Wilson, let us know when we've bumped it up.
Give a like for joy.
Lethal joy. Lethal joy.
Yeah, like lethal joy.
If you don't, then the weird Republicans win. This is a battle of weird versus joy. All right, where are we at now?
I'm seeing 560.
Really pathetic. We'll keep going, but we better get to 1,000 very soon. All right. Let's keep going.
President Trump are already preparing for their first face-off in September. On Friday, former President Trump accepted the endorsement of independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who suspended his campaign. On Saturday, I sat down with Mr. Trump's running mate, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, in Cincinnati.
Well, yeah, Bobby Kennedy Jr. coming out and endorsing Trump. Who could have seen that coming?
I know.
Yeah. No, I'm being sarcastic. That seemed to be his play for quite a long time. Now, granted, in his defense, he was, he did make an effort to run as a Democrat, but Democrats were not interested in a primary because they said Joe Biden is the nominee. Right. And then, of course, when Joe Biden tanked in the polls, they turned around and just anointed Kamala Harris.
Right.
So RFK Jr. felt he had no choice. But speaking of choice, as much as I agree with RFK Jr. on, his criticism of the proxy war in Ukraine, when it comes to the mass murder campaign in Gaza, he was not much of a choice at all in terms of separating himself from everybody else because he was an unhinged Israel supporter. He was more racist and bigoted than either Biden or Trump, that's quite the feat. So what a disappointment RFK Jr. turned out to be. Because, I do think he raised some important points, especially for me on the proxy war in Ukraine. But when it came to Israel, I think he I mean, I don't if he ever was serious actually about being a third party candidate. I think and maybe he never was serious. Maybe all this was just a ploy to support Trump in the end. I don't know, but certainly when he came out and became just unhinged on Palestine, that was it for me.
Right. I also want to mention, since we're talking about lethal joy, it does make sense that they embrace lethal joy because, something that they dropped from their platform for the first time in a while is the opposition to the death penalty, which is really, oh, yeah, it wasn't in it. And it's been in it recently, a bunch of our platforms. And of course, as people probably know, it makes a lot of sense. The death penalty is at an all-time low in terms of popularity. So the fact that they would kind of conspicuously, for people who follow this, conspicuously omit the death penalty from their platform is really embarrassing. But maybe it's kind of shows their internationalism, their transcultural, transnational, beyond borders commitment to lethality, to lethal joy.
Lethal joy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Abroad and at home. Yeah,
Mm.
but that is so embarrassing. I mean, that is just heinous.
All right. Well, listen, Katie, while you're being all negative, okay, bring up substantive points, okay, about things like policy, right?
Right.
Democrats are not going to let that interrupt their joy. And here to remind us of just how joyful this whole extravaganza is a man who's full of joy, especially when he receives a check from AIPAC, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker.
Before we go, if you listened very closely to the convention, you might have picked up on a subtle theme at the DNC this week. Take a listen.
Kamala is a joyful warrior.
The joy of her laughter and her light.
Thank you for bringing the joy to this fight.
Joy, joy, joy.
Joy in our hearts.
The president of joy.
By the way, did Hillary sound very joyful there? Joy in our hearts.
Yeah. I mean, just you can't pick a worse messenger for any of those words. Joy, having a heart, yeah. It's not gonna. It doesn't roll. It doesn't land well when it's come from Hillary Clinton. Yeah, or her husband for that matter.
Choose joy.
Aaron, you love it.
Yes, this is Oprah. So is this why Oprah is so famous? Is she can just really hit that one syllable and hold it? Is that this is like her signature thing? I forgot this about her, but okay. You do that in America.
She invites people up to the invites people down onto stage or something. It sounds very preacher-ish.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, it's worked for her. I mean, she's worth more than $1 billion. I guess that's her thing. I am impressed. Again, that's confident. I would not be able to hold a note like that, a syllable like that, for long in public. I think it's impressive.
Well, that's why you're not Oprah, Aaron. No offense.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing the convention of plagiarizing from you, but joy is kind of your thing. It was central to your 2020 presidential campaign. That didn't work with Democratic voters then, at least not enough to make you the nominee. Why do you think it's working now?
What a diss of Cory Booker,
I know.
by Jake Tapper. Why is he picking on him just for trying to spread some joy?
Well, he's trying to start something between Cory and the DNC, as you'll see. He stokes it.
Jake is not feeling the joy.
I think it's fatigue in this country. I really do. I think we're just tired of negative cynicism about America in general. There is not a country in the world, and I've traveled through Europe and the Middle East and Africa just in the last months. There is not a place I go where people don't envy our nation. We have so much to be proud of. That doesn't mean that we don't have real challenges and real problems, but energy begets energy, and negativity and darkness and doomsaying only creates more of that energy.
I think Cory Booker may have recently read that book. What is it? The Secret? Power of Attraction?
Yeah, Obama was on this play too. He's like, we're all caught up in superficial things like likes and material gains.
Right.
And Obama has 3 different multi-million-dollar homes.
Right.
Cory Booker's also done pretty well for himself, just pocketing money from AIPAC and the pharmaceutical industry. So these people are now sounding like self-help gurus.
Yeah.
It's a good bit. I don't think it's going to convince very many people, but I welcome it because it's kind of entertaining.
It is, yeah. It is a good bit, especially because it lets you not have to talk about the policy.
Exactly.
It's time that we take pride in who we are again, that we feel the joy of our ancestors, and we're our ancestors' wildest dreams, the life we're living. We are capable of doing extraordinary things, and it's about time.
You know, Cory Booker, I'm going to speak for your ancestors for a second. I think they would look at you and probably say, I think we can do better.
Yeah.
I think we can do better than someone who shills for Israel, takes money from AIPAC, supports mass murder, does the bidding of Wall Street, does the bidding of anybody who funds basically his political career. So with all due respect, Cory Booker, I'm going to speak for your ancestors here. I think they probably are looking at you and saying that we can do better.
Yeah. Aaron's gonna ancestor explain.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take that liberty here. Yeah. And again, it's like this whole thing of like they're spreading joy and cynicism. I mean, look, when they talk about Trump, they're saying if he's elected, it's the end of our democracy. Like that's what they've been saying. It's not. It's kind of cynical to say that if this one guy is elected, our democracy is over. Right. He's the Orange Hitler. He was a Russian agent. It's a little cynical. So I think it's pretty rich to say that all of a sudden they're the party of like positive thinking.
Right. I agree. Yeah. But, I do like their the use of joy because the Nazis had a slogan, strength through joy. So I like that callback. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
We start feeling that strength and that potential. Yes, weeping endures through the night, but I think joy is coming now with the new day and the new horizon, and especially I think what Harris and Walz are really offering. It's a new energy for America, and it's about time that our country start plugging into that hopefulness and that joyfulness.
But true or false?
Ugh. Why don't they just admit that they're joyful because Joe Biden's no longer on the ticket?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
If they were to say that, I could get with it because that's true. They're being honest. They are. They deserve to be joyful that they don't have to run Joe Biden anymore because he was going to destroy their party.
Right.
But the other stuff, come on, Cory Booker.
Well, I like when he says plug into the joy because you remember that like air freshener thing that you plug in and the song was plug it in, plug it in.
Mm-hmm,
they could just use that as like the theme song for the campaign.
America's air freshener, the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Plug it in, plug it in. Yeah. Lethal Joy. Plug it in, plug it in. Well, we have to keep watching a little bit more because here's where Jake Tapper, as I previewed, is trying to start something. You'll see. We wanted a couple seconds.
Joy.
Wait.
False. You are
time that our country start plugging into that hopefulness and that joyfulness.
But true or false? You are OG Joy.
I have definitely been banging this drum for many, many years. And a Republican pollster once told me that I ran a campaign a few years too early, but that the country was moving in this direction. And everywhere I went in that convention, everywhere I go as I campaign for my colleagues from Nevada, with Jackie Rosen to campaigning for Tammy Baldwin, everywhere I go, I am seeing an energy of hopefulness and joyfulness, like a new horizon is coming to this country. So I'm excited about it. I feel like I'm a good surrogate for her now, even better than before because of where the country is. And I think America's ready to turn a page and embrace a new spirit.
So
wow, never heard this before. Like, it's not like Ronald Reagan ran on like it's morning in America, sunny optimism. Obama was hope and change. They're just repackaging what previous successful presidential candidates have done and hoping that this one lands. It's a new horizon.
New horizon. OG Joy. Jake Tapper thought that was so clever.
He thought that was so clever, and he's been practicing for that.
Yep.
As soon as they told him like that they have Cory Booker booked and that Cory Booker ran on a joy theme, Jake Tapper's been practicing like, so you're OG Joy. He couldn't wait to say that.
And I like the way Cory Booker says that someone told him he was ahead of his time with the joy.
Yeah.
We call that premature ejaculation.
Oh, that's
sorry.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
You're welcome, everyone. Yeah.
But again, they're just repackaging Reagan saying it's morning in America, his sunny optimism. It's not the first time we've heard this. And I love that they pretend this is something new. Okay, well, Cory Booker actually faced some real questions at the DNC from an actual journalist named Max Blumenthal of the Gray Zone, who caught up with him in the wings of the DNC.
Senator Booker, why have the Democrats just done so little to exercise leverage against Israel while it's...
When somebody starts out with the Democrats, I know they're divided.
President Biden. Do you think it's AIPAC money?
So you can't identify the party that Cory Booker is from, and that is in power right now? You can't say the Democrats?
No, that's offensive, I guess. I don't even know what you mean there.
I know when you identify the political party that I represent, that you're just out to divide us.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Should we not call you?
If that's true, though, then they really divided the Democrats at that convention. Think about all the time they referred to the Democrats.
It's true. That's true. The dividers. Yeah, there's no joy in dividing. Yeah.
How much AIPAC money have you taken over your career? And do you think that's had an impact on why Biden has not imposed a red line on Netanyahu's Project 2025 of ethnically cleansing Gaza? Is it meddling for AIPAC to donate so much money?
Oh, yeah. How many Palestinians does Israel need to kill?
How many Palestinians does Israel need to kill before you impose a ceasefire?
Say AIPAC money.
Say AIPAC money. Instead of cheese.
All right, so there's some footage of two journalists interrupting Cory Booker's joy by bringing up the fact that he's taken money from AIPAC and has been an unhinged supporter of Israel, not just since its mass murder campaign began, but throughout his political career. So, that's why he's walking away from them and won't answer their questions.
Max is a joy blocker.
He's a joy blocker.
You know what I just realized? Max is, that band, Joy Division?
Uh-huh.
That's Max, Joy and Division. He's dividing on the Democrats.
Yeah. He's dividing the joy by identifying the name of the party that is Cory Booker is a part of, and that is currently overseeing a mass murder campaign in Gaza. Joy Division.
That's Democratophobic.
Mm-hmm.
To call them.
All right. Well, speaking of Democratic-phobic, you'd think having all these Republicans there to be on stage and giving them speaking slots, you think that might be an affront to Democrats to revere, celebrate all these Republicans from the other party, but no, they're proud that all these Republicans and neocons are joining their ranks. And here to talk about that is former DNC chair Donna Brazile.
You had a great time in Chicago.
Absolutely.
What was striking is I've never seen so much unity at a Democratic convention. There always are dissenters. Is it going to last?
Absolutely.
Well, that's because we didn't let the dissenters speak. So that's an easy way to avoid that.
Absolutely. Look, hats off to the remarkable team chaired by my good friend Mignon Moore, Alex Hornbrook, the city of Chicago, the governor of Illinois, the police, Secret Service. It went as planned. It was a joyful convention. There were people there. Let me just tell you, I saw more Republicans at the Democratic convention than I've seen at any other time in my entire life.
I was there for a second, but
well, you should have stayed because it would have given you a lot of joy. But it was great.
But it was great. Yeah, that was Reince Priebus saying he was only there for a second. He looked very angry when she said that.
Well, it's awkward to me that Democrats are celebrating that they have all these Republicans. Shouldn't that make you think about whether or not you're staying true to what your party is supposed to be? If Republicans are just doing all they can to join you, and you're giving them all these spots
you.
Yeah. And it wasn't just because they shut down dissent that there was so much unity and no dissent. It's because the progressives who got to speak didn't really say anything substantive when it comes to standing up for progressive issues. Bernie Sanders said a couple of things about how we need to stop inequality, we need to fight the influence of big money. But AOC got up there and gushed over President Biden, said he did such a great job, and lied that Kamala Harris was working for a ceasefire. So it's not just even that dissent was shut down. It's when progressives were given a chance to speak on stage, they squandered it because they didn't, especially AOC didn't actually say anything to really champion what progressives care about, which right now especially is Gaza.
Right.
And her only comments on that were to lie and to praise Kamala Harris for something that she's not doing, which is she's not working for a ceasefire.
Right. And shout out to Ilhan Omar, who kind of called that out.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. As we covered, if you watch we had a Useful Idiots National Convention.
Oh yeah, we
it's
did.
on our YouTube page. You can go watch that if you missed it. Okay. Well, this stuff's funny because like it's clear to me again why there is joy, and the joy is that Joe Biden is off the ticket for Democrats. And here to acknowledge that is Congress member Pat Ryan of New York.
Tight re-election race in Hudson Valley, New York. Do you think that having Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket makes it easier for you to win than if Joe Biden had stayed?
Without question. I mean, coming out of the DNC and for the last now month plus, we have just seen such energy, such enthusiasm, such true joy and optimism at a time when, even this morning in your coverage, it's a challenging, dark, and divided time. And that's what people in my district are desperate for. That is what we've been working on. When Kamala Harris talks about freedom, patriotism, reproductive freedom, economic freedom, freedom to breathe clean air and water, that is what folks, regardless of party, they want to believe in something, to be for something. And she has delivered that. And I think over the next 72 days, we're going to see that momentum continue to build.
The former speaker points to 5 seats in New York State as determining the difference between Democrats having a minority or majority spot in Congress. You are one of those seats. Do you think that now Democrats have a better shot at gaining the majority?
Yes,
definitely.
No doubt. It's just been a sea change. I mean, I won my last race by 1.3%.
Exactly.
Very attuned to what's happening in my district and talking to folks all day, every day. It has been just kind of putting rocket fuel into a jet engine and seeing blast off. It's so important, I think, to understand.
I just love this clip because imagine if you're Joe Biden and you're like tuning into Sunday morning news shows and like you want to see if anyone's talking about you. And the only thing you're hearing is like Democrats being like, oh, thank God he's off the ticket. It's been made such a difference. Our lives are so much better. We're all so joyful. This is wonderful. Like this guy can't contain his glee that Joe Biden is no longer running. and,
it's really, I know. I wonder what Joe thinks about all this.
I mean, it's pretty demeaning for Joe Biden. Yeah. But I mean, if there's somebody who deserves it, it's I gotta say.
Can you imagine the ego and vanity of Biden? Like he could have had so much. Like I mean, obviously he's genocidal, and we would always see him that way. But he would have had his legacy would have been so much better for people who don't care about genocide if he had just done what he said he would have done, which has been a one-term president. And it just looks, it's so pathetic. He just looks so pathetic. Yeah. Well, speaking of leaving the race, we got an interesting clip for you. This comes from the Meet the Press's interview with JD Vance. And as you'll see, they bring up RFK Jr. Let's take a look.
Kennedy, the big news yesterday.
Very big news.
He suspended his campaign, announced he's endorsing Donald Trump. He is also known as someone who has blamed vaccines for autism, antidepressants for school shootings, and recently said, quote, he won't take sides on what happened on 9/11. Do you have any hesitation about accepting his endorsement?
No, Kristen, I don't, because we're going to disagree on issues, right? There are things that Robert Kennedy has said that I disagree with. I'm sure there are things that he said, or that I've said, excuse me, that he's going to disagree with. But I think what his endorsement represents is that Donald J. Trump's Republican Party is a big tent party. I was raised by 2 grandparents who are sort of classic blue dog Democrats. They believed in having a border. They believed that, you shouldn't have censorship in the United States of America. They believed in common sense economic policies. They may have disagreed with Donald Trump about tax policy, but they believed in some fundamental American values. And I think what RFK's endorsement really shows is that the Kennedy Democrats are actually more at home in the Republican Party of Donald Trump. And unfortunately, Kamala Harris's party, higher prices, doing nothing to fight back against the Chinese, to say nothing of a wide open border. That is not JFK's Democratic Party. It's not RFK's Democratic Party. We're thrilled to have the Kennedy Democrats where they belong.
Well, and some of the...
Okay, so we're supposed to think that the Kennedys, I mean, yeah, we do have one Kennedy, RFK Jr., is endorsing Trump, but every single other Kennedy that's alive has spoken out against this. So I think it's funny that he claims to be speaking about the Kennedys.
Yes, and then the other question becomes, why should anybody care what any Kennedy says?
Oh, that's also true, right?
Like, you know, are we a monarchy where like we worship these like dynastic families? Like, you know, there's a whole cult around the Kennedys that I've never understood. I mean, people on the left, they don't like when I say this, but there's this really widespread belief that Kennedy was taking on the deep state. He was going to pull out of Vietnam, and
big debate about that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced. You know, I've read Chomsky wrote a book about this called Rethinking Camelot.
Right.
Cy Hirsch wrote a book called The Dark Side of Camelot, which, and you read those books, and you just Kennedy was a very horny guy. And that was his main focus. It seems like, especially from Cy Hirsch's book. And there's no evidence to me, and I know this is going to anger some people in our audience, but this is just the evidence as I see it. He was going to pull out of Vietnam, and I agree. Obviously, there should be transparency about how he was killed. But anyway, the point is, I don't get why we care so much about what this one aristocratic family thinks, no matter what you think about John F. Kennedy's record.
But it is funny to hear Joy. I was going to say Joy D. Vance. J.D. Vance.
No, that's his new name. You just read Joy D. Vance. I like it.
Yeah, I like it. But I think it's funny to hear him try to claim JFK and RFK, because regardless of whether you think of them as anti-imperialist and anti-war, which you obviously don't, Aaron, they're seen as much more leftist than other presidents and other politicians. So it is funny seeing J.D. Vance embrace them. But let's finish up that clip or play it for a little bit more, because there's some other great stuff that happens.
Kennedy family have stepped forward to say that they sharply disagree with this endorsement. But let's just go back very quickly. He says he isn't taking sides on 9/11. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, of course I don't agree with that, Kristen. Now,
she should, whatever that statement is, she should show the whole thing.
Exactly.
It's so obvious.
Luckily, we're going to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
To be clear, I don't know what RFK actually said there. Maybe there was additional context. Of course, you actually have to see what people say before you agree or disagree with it. I certainly have taken sides in 9/11. I'm the pro-America side. I don't think that we should have been attacked, and I certainly think hitting back against the terrorists was justified.
Does he actually think that RFK Jr. was saying, I'm not going to take sides on whether or not the U.S. should have been attacked?
Well, this is a good example of how just like sleazy corporate journalism is, where they cherry pick one quote and they ask people to respond to it without any context, as J.D. Vance is pointing out. So then he interprets it one way, which is not even actually, I guess, the way that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. mentioned it. But it's like, this is really just, it's such gutter journalism.
It really is. It's so irresponsible. Yeah. So wait, I know. And the funny thing is that he comes off seeming like rational.
Yeah. And there's plenty of things. Plenty of things that RFK have said that you could, criticize them for, but like you're cherry picking this one quote, and it's so obvious what they're doing. Let's show the actual quote, right? Because this is
right. God forbid you actually provided the context for it. So he says, my take on 9/11, it's hard to tell what is a conspiracy theory and what isn't, but conspiracy theories flourish when the government routinely lies to the public. As president, I won't take sides on 9/11 or any of the other debates, but I can promise is that I will open the files and usher in a new era of transparency. Now, he then clarified. So, Wilson, show the next tweet right under that, please. Referring here to the CBS 60-minute segment last Sunday revealing possible Saudi involvement in 9/11, sparking all kinds of speculation on X. Speculation about what our government may be covering up is rife outside the mainstream of our political culture. Trust in, he means government, is at an all-time low. The way to restore that trust is through honesty and transparency. That is my promise. So, all right, let's just explain what he's referring to. So this was a story that 60 Minutes aired June, and it's about a video of Omar al-Bayoumi, who was a Saudi intelligence official with ties to 2 of the 9/11 hijackers. And in this video, he's seen reporting on the U.S. Capitol and Washington Monument and talking about like entrances and exits and vulnerabilities. And a retired FBI agent named Richard Lambert said the video is, quote, another very large brick in a massive wall of evidence that at this point indicates the Saudi government was complicit in the 9/11 attacks, end quote. So basically, you have Kristen Welker of NBC saying that RFK is a crank for discussing a report from CBS She's like accusing a rival network of being peddling conspiracy theories. And what's so annoying about this, and it's so typical, is that the media, as you said, Aaron, just now, like there's plenty of things you can criticize RFK Jr. for, but the looking into the role of the Saudis in 9/11 does not actually make you crazy. And they always do this. They make you a conspiracy theorist for just questioning the official line, the government's official story.
Yeah, well, they hate transparency, which is what RFK Jr. was calling for there. And so therefore they're totally disingenuously taking like a few words from what he said and turning to something that he did not say at all. I mean, she's suggesting that he was saying, I won't take sides on 9/11, meaning like he's agnostic on like whether or not it was okay to attack the US. Like that's the intent of her. But anyway, this is typical smear job stuff, and it's very lame. And but it's not surprising given who was. This is the network that pushed Russiagate for so long.
Right, exactly. Right, so they're the conspiracy theorists.
Yeah. Okay.
And also, let's just make one more point, which is that a conspiracy just means multiple people working together on something, and that's not actually insane, given that there are conspiracies.
Yeah. Sure.
Anyway.
Sure.
It's so annoying and stupid. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's turn to the Middle East, or West Asia, as they call it. And over the weekend, there was an exchange of fire from Israel and Hezbollah. Now, of course, Israel, as it always does, started it by launching what are called a preemptive attack on Lebanon and claiming to target Hezbollah because they said that Hezbollah was preparing to attack Israel. And then Hezbollah fired back, and Hezbollah, of course, as it usually does, focus on military targets, a distinction that Israel does not adhere to, as we see in Gaza. And of course, the whole media, because Israel said we launched a preemptive attack, the whole media said Israel launched a preemptive attack. And because the Biden administration has sent all these military assets to the Middle East, and they say that they're there to de-escalate. Of course, the media is saying that the U.S. is there to de-escalate rather than to enforce Israeli aggression, because the real way to de-escalate would be to pose a ceasefire on Israel, which the Biden administration will not do. So here's ABC's Martha Raddatz giving us a summary.
And by the way, just before we start that, remember, if a preemptive strike sounds familiar, it may be because the very successful, justified, moral Iraq War.
All of this very closely. John.
All right, Britt Clennett from Israel, thank you very much. Britt, let's bring in this week co-anchor Martha Raddatz, who has been monitoring the latest developments. So, Martha, obviously, there are significant U.S. military assets in the region. What are the dangers of the U.S. getting dragged into a wider conflict here?
Well, I would say those assets are there not only for security reasons, but to try to stop any escalation. We have two.
Oh, okay, my bad. I thought maybe sending U.S. military forces somewhere, like sending naval submarines, sending aircraft carriers, other, massive weapon systems. I thought that would be a sign of escalation, but according to ABC, it's actually de-escalation.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
It reminds me of
Aaron, for security reasons, because for some reason, if we stop Israel from massacring people in Gaza, that's a threat to our security.
Right.
I think that's the message we're getting here.
Well, Aaron, it reminds me of, remember that those war games that we saw that the members of Congress were playing? It was bipartisan. Ro Khanna was one of them. And as they explained to us, that was to prevent war. War games to prevent war.
War games to prevent war, yes.
Same
only
logic.
Only in America.
U.S. carrier battle groups in the region, and also a guided missile submarine. Guided missile
submarine, U.S. carrier groups. Sounds escalatory to me. I mean, if you send military to a region, it sounds like you're escalating. But again, according to ABC News, that's actually de-escalated.
There's something like... Oh, keep going, Aaron.
Yeah.
Well, it reminds me, there's something like some parallel here with like kids claiming to like they're trying to like not fight, they're trying to make up, but I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be, but like beating their friend with Legos or something and pretending that they're just trying to de-escalate.
It reminds me of my famous Rock Stoppers story
Yes.
that I told you when
That's
me and my friends in grade school started the Rock Stoppers under the guise of preventing rock throwing, but we ended up being the ones throwing the rocks,
right?
The Rock Stoppers. Yeah. All this talk of escalation, Katie, I have a song suggestion for the Useful Idiots canon. We're always adding new songs
Wilson, write this
to our
down.
catalog. Okay. The song Celebrate by Kool and the Gang. You hear it at weddings and bar mitzvahs and sporting events.
Come on.
So escalate end times. Come on.
Oh, that's really good. That's really
Thank you.
good. There's a party going on. Yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. More from Martha Redditz.
Missiles on board that submarine that could strike if needed. Those submarines can also carry Navy SEALs. And the U.S. has been very open about what they have in the region. The Secretary of Defense calling out that they had that attack submarine in the region. That just never happens. So they want Iran.
Again, sounds escalatory to me.
Aaron, that's because you don't get it.
Yeah, sounds escalatory. But what do I know? Yeah. I'm not paid the big bucks to go on ABC News and tell us that sending aircraft carriers and naval submarines with weapons that can strike countries is de-escalatory. Yeah.
Also, what happens if one of our submarines or forces gets hit by accident or intentionally? Is that going to be a de-escalatory thing?
Then I think we can sing our song. Escalate end times. Come on.
Yeah, I like it.
They want Hezbollah. They want Hamas to know they are there, if needed, to defend Israel, but also send that message, don't do anything. We do not want this to escalate.
Yeah, we don't want this to escalate.
Weird way to send that message. Yeah.
We don't want this to escalate, but we won't do the one thing that could prevent escalation, which is stopping Israel's mass murder campaign, which has been Hezbollah and Iran's goal from day one.
Yeah, and
Hezbollah said, they said, exactly, and Ansar Allah, aka the Houthis, they've all said that their goal is to stop Israel from slaughtering people in Gaza. But the Biden administration won't do that. So to enforce Israeli aggression, they send military assets.
Right. And I love this claim that Israel doesn't want war with Lebanon.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, they're doing all they can to start one. And they want to drag the US in with them. And the fact that Biden sent all these military forces is a sign that they might get that. Right. If I'm making a prediction, I don't think it will happen, but that's what we're risking by refusing to end what Israel's doing in Gaza is your content and then escalating by sending all these forces. It's madness. But
And by the way, the preemptive strike, so remember, brought to you by the United States with Iraq, and that turned out really well. But also the 1967 war was started by a preemptive strike. That worked out really well for Israel. So maybe
yes, that was this miracle, according to Israel, where somehow they were about to face annihilation by Egypt and Syria. So Israel just had to start the war. And they ended up in the course of a defensive war, strictly defensive. They ended up acquiring all this new territory that they've long coveted: the West Bank, Gaza, the Sinai, and the Golan Heights. Like, how many times are you defending yourself from a home invasion, and you end up acquiring 5 new homes?
Hate when that happens.
It really is a miracle. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, let's turn to Israeli Ambassador Michael Herzog, who is going to talk about the escalation we're seeing.
To assess at this point that we are escalating towards a regional war or that we are taking a step back? Is there risk of escalation?
I believe that the success of our operation yesterday prevented an escalation to a major war. The threat is still there. We still need a settlement with Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. They followed Hamas by launching a war with Israel on October 8th, and have been firing thousands of rockets into Israel since then. We give a chance to diplomacy, and we hope it works, but if not, we have nearly 70,000 people in Israel, northern Israel, away from their homes, refugees in their own country, and we have to make sure they can go back safely to their homes.
And many in southern Lebanon also unable to return to their homes.
Yeah, okay, so here's the ambassador, the Israeli ambassador, saying we've given diplomacy a chance. And what he means is we've given diplomacy a chance by refusing to accept diplomacy. And every time diplomacy advances, we add new conditions that makes a ceasefire deal impossible. And here he's actually kind of admitting that in this next clip.
Secretary of State did say the bridging proposal was accepted, but then your prime minister has said things publicly that seem to contradict that in terms of the specifics, particularly among that Philadelphia corridor. What is reality?
The reality is that we're not obliged to leave the Philadelphia corridor at this phase. We are reducing our forces there. We had constructive talks in Egypt a few days ago. We are well coordinated with the U.S. administration. We're waiting for Hamas to see if they are in the game.
When you say in this phase, are you being specific in saying that's not part of phase one of this multi-phase diplomatic deal the U.S. is trying to broker?
The deal is multi-phase, as you said, but we are now focusing on phase one. And phase one, we hope to get as many live hostages out as possible. It comes with a pause in our military operation for at least 42 days. And in that period, we hope that, again, we can get out as many live hostages as possible. Every day that passes endangers their lives.
Well, then why don't you engage in a ceasefire and stop killing them? Because you've killed more hostages than you've rescued.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. And what Netanyahu was saying is that they want to maintain an Israeli military occupation of the Philadelphia corridor, which divides Gaza from Egypt, which Hamas has said is a non-starter. Right. And even Israeli military leaders have said we don't need to do. But Netanyahu has added that condition because he knows that Hamas will never accept it. So Netanyahu is prolonging his mass murder campaign and knowingly endangering the hostages that he claims he wants to save.
I know. It's just so rich hearing them talk about the hostages as if they care about them at all. This is not how you act if you cared about your hostages.
I mean, the one thing that they like, Hamas, by all accounts, has treated the Israeli hostages infinitely better than Israel treats the Palestinian hostages and prisoners. I mean, like, just look at the Israelis after they've been released. I mean, they all look healthy. One woman claims she was sexually assaulted by one guard, but that's the only instance really that's come out that I know of. I could be missing something of abuse. But compare that to Palestinians by the tens of thousands, subjected to the worst conditions, sadistic torture, sexual assault, as has been documented on video. So Israel can know that because they're actually dealing with a force that isn't debased like Israel is, that their hostages are not going to be abused when they're in Hamas captivity, unlike Palestinian prisoners in Israeli captivity.
And I mean, I know I must sound like a broken record, but it is unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable that Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, who have brought up the alleged and debunked Hamas rape story, they haven't brought up the documented rape allegations. The documented rape reports, and the fact that the Knesset has defended it once.
Well, Jake Tapper is the OG rape apologist.
Yep. I mean, these people
as a callback.
It's like you can't. It's like you can't. Every time you think it couldn't get any worse, it gets worse.
Yep. Yeah.
Can you just imagine for 1 second if any of the stuff coming out from Israel had come out from Palestine? Politicians defending, inserting sticks into people's rectums as legitimate, posting videos of sexually assaulting someone.
I mean, as we're recording this, there's been another Israeli assault on a school where people are sheltering that killed civilians. They've also forced people to leave I believe the last functioning hospital in Gaza. It's right in the middle too, so it's serving like hundreds of thousands, more than 1 million people. The Al-Aqsa Hospital. So Israel's destroyed so many other hospitals, put them out of commission, and now it's set its sights on the last remaining functioning hospital. I'm in Istanbul right now, and I met a Palestinian nurse the other day who survived Gaza. He got out a few months ago, and he says that all the hospitals, to the extent they're operating, they're no longer hospitals. They're just first aid stations, and now Israel wants to, go and target the last hospital. Of course, they did this with the complicity of people like Jake Tapper at CNN, who laundered all the Israeli lies that these hospitals are being used by Hamas as command centers, which, even if true, wouldn't justify targeting these hospitals and displacing all these patients. Even if it were true, and of course it wasn't true, it was a complete lie.
Right. And also we should mention that Israel just blew up the 700-year-old Grand Mosque in Gaza.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And
the crimes
that remind you of someone, maybe like ISIS?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like the crimes are just, there's so many of them, they're impossible to keep track of because they just mount every single day. So okay. let's turn to H.R. McMaster. He's the former national security advisor for Donald Trump, and he has a new memoir to sell.
Has about 40,000 U.S. troops in the region, this real muscular show of force. How concerned are you about miscalculation and blowback to those U.S. forces?
Yeah. Well, what I'm concerned about, Margaret, is that those forces will be constrained in what they're able to do in response. I think what we've seen is a reluctance to act like we know what the return address is for this violence. And, of course, the return address is Iran. And I think all Americans,
exactly.
What it means is
Iran
is pursuing a strategy that in which it is willing to expend every Arab life, every Palestinian life, every Lebanese life in pursuit of its objective of destroying Israel. Meanwhile,
there's so much to unpack here. First of all, Iran's goal is not to destroy Israel. Iran, like all the Arab states, has signed on to the international consensus of accepting a two-state solution where Israel gives up control of the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem and allows a Palestinian state there. Even Iran has accepted that. Okay, the only people who oppose that are Israel and the U.S., which insist on Israel's right, self-declared right to steal as much Palestinian land as it wants. So Iran has actually accepted what people like H.R. McMaster claim they support, but really don't, which is a Palestinian state, which for Palestinians is a massive compromise because that's only 22% of their historic compromise. Everybody, including Iran, including Hamas at certain times, has accepted that. So this claim that Iran's out to destroy Israel is a complete lie. It's Israel that's out to destroy the Palestinians, which is it's just currently doing before our eyes in Gaza, and is also doing more subtly, but with equal ferocity and fanaticism in the West Bank as well. So it's just a complete lie. And then the second lie there is like this idea that Iran is behind, Hezbollah, behind Hamas.
Address.
Yeah, which is just not true. Everybody knows that Hamas's military wing acted independently on October 7th. The Hamas political wing didn't even know about October 7th. Iran certainly didn't. Hezbollah certainly didn't, because if they did know about it, then they actually would have been involved much more forcefully since October 7th than they have been. It's been very clear that they did not want Hamas to do that, but Hamas acted independently. And that's also why in Syria, Hamas was or at least elements of Hamas, not the full movement. There was a split, but basically they were on different sides. There was a part of Hamas that was on a much different side than Iran and Hezbollah were inside Syria, which shows that Iran is not behind everything. So it's just a complete lie. And of course, if we had journalism in this country, like his claim would be challenged immediately. But of course, you're allowed to lie if it serves U.S. hegemony. And so she let it slide.
Right. And also, I mean, if you want to talk about the return address, that would be the Nakba and continued ethnic cleansing and occupation of Palestine.
Exactly right.
You want to get to the root causes, McMaster.
Exactly right.
While Iran is continuing to funnel weapons not only into southern Lebanon, but to essentially a proxy army in Syria.
Also, one other thing is, how disgusting is it? We've talked about this before. It's like abuser language, like you made me do it. The fact that he's accusing Iran of being willing to sacrifice every Arab life, every Palestinian life, every Lebanese life. Well, no, actually, Israel is the one extinguishing those lives, literally killing them.
Exactly. With U.S. weapons.
Yeah, with U.S. weapons, yeah.
So he's projecting. He's willing to extinguish Palestinian lives and Lebanese lives, and maybe even Iranian lives if it furthers the goal of a U.S.-Israeli hegemony.
Yeah,
he's
and look
projecting
at his face.
like they always do.
Yeah, and look at his face. That's the joyful face you get when you're talking about killing those people.
Into the West Bank, and this is why the Philadelphia Accord is so important to Israel, is to keep Hamas isolated from a resupply from the Iranians as well. At the same time, Iran is racing to produce a nuclear device. So I think what we have to recognize is this.
Iran has a nuclear energy program, but they're not racing to produce a nuclear weapon. Though the way the U.S. is acting, there are plenty of people inside Iran who are saying maybe we should produce a nuclear weapon because these people are leaving us with no choice. They reject diplomacy. They insist on their right to bomb us whenever they want, to slaughter Palestinians. So everything U.S. is doing is encouraging voices in Iran who do want a nuclear weapon.
Right. And who's the country that actually has the nuclear weapon?
Right. Yeah. We're not allowed to mention that, but yeah, it's none of the people he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
horrible situation in the region that's been going on for 40 years, right? It's important to remember that Stricker, the Hezbollah commander who was killed, and who the Hezbollah is now trying to launch these attacks in retribution for that. I mean, he was responsible in part for the 1983 bombings that killed 241 Marines. You know, so in
so that's a claim they make to justify Israel killing this Hezbollah commander a few weeks ago in Beirut. They say he was responsible for the bombing that killed, U.S. Marines in Beirut. And the problem is the guy was like 21 years old when that bombing happened, and there's actually not much concrete evidence tying him to that. So that I would bet is probably a lie too. I can't say for sure it's a lie, but I would take it certainly with a grain of salt.
Right, but also by that logic, I mean, are all these Israeli officials open? Is it fair game to assassinate Israeli officials who have committed war crimes?
Well, according to this logic, absolutely would be, but that's premised on treating everybody as equal.
Right.
Seeing all human people don't. They don't see Arabs, especially Palestinians, as equal human beings, and therefore the standards that we're supposed to follow don't apply to them.
Got it. Right.
Okay, that's enough H.R. McMaster.
Oh my God. If you thought McMaster was bad, wow. General Kellogg is like, hold my beer. And this is the former national security advisor to Mike Pence.
Now, Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg. General, welcome back. Good to see you. What do you make of what we've seen over the last 24 hours? There's some say it's provocative, others say it's a real pushback to shut down what could have happened.
Yeah, Shannon, thanks for having me. I thought it was a great move. Look, the preemptive strike was very, very important, because if they had launched the strike, the Hezbollah into Israel with thousands of missiles, and they were talking thousands, what would have happened with the loss of lives of Israelis and also the facilities? It would have pushed the Israelis into a doctrine they call Dahiya. And what Dahiya is called disproportionate response. And I think what they did, they prevented the next or the third Israeli-Lebanese war, and that is smart.
So I want to give him a shout out for actually acknowledging the Dahiya Doctrine, which is something that the Israelis tend not to advertise, because it is an explicit war crime policy, which is that you respond with disproportionate force. So shout out to Kellogg for that. And this is kind of the difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, or, Fox and MSNBC, which is that the Democrats pretend to care about human rights, and the Republicans just openly embrace war crimes, and Democrats deny that they're happening.
And because of that, I think it's kind of reset the battlefield there. And it's important they did it. I think they did it quite well. The attacks will continue. They're just diminishing the ability of Hezbollah to attack. I have to go back when you think about what's happened there. Is really the United States hasn't played a major role there in kind of de-escalating the situation, because President Biden hasn't done a lot in talking to Netanyahu. Vice President Harris hasn't done very much. I mean, she actually stiffed Netanyahu when he came here into the joint session of Congress when he spoke. And you've got Blinken going over there on his 9th trip, no ceasefire. And you got the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, heading to China instead of going to the Middle East. Now, I know CQ Brown's going to be there, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But you kind of got to focus in on what's going to happen there and prevent something from happening into the future. And they haven't done it. But the Israelis have done it. So the Israelis have done, actually, is reset deterrence in the region. And I think it's smart. And I think it's put Hezbollah on their back foot. And it's clearly put the Iranians on their back foot, that they haven't done anything at all.
Well, so we do have assets in the region. We beefed up our presence.
Wait, I don't get it. The Iranians are on the back foot and they haven't done anything at all. I thought they were the ones escalating. Which is it?
Yeah, exactly. Like Iran is aggressive. They won't stop attacking us. They're behind everything. But also now you're saying they're on the back foot. They're scared. I mean, what they've been doing is, I think, holding out in the hopes that these ceasefire talks actually work. That's been the clear message. And the clear message from the U.S. and Israel is that basically we only respond to violence. That's the message from Israel and the U.S. And Keith Kellogg is saying, I guess, the U.S. has only erred in not supporting Israeli aggression enough. We need to be even more aggressive than we're currently being, which is hard to imagine.
Absolutely disgusting.
Administration keeps publicly saying Israel has every right to defend itself, and we will back them in that. But where do we go from here? Because you mentioned we've still got the threat out there looming from Iran saying we're going to take action when we decide. You've got Hezbollah, and never mind what's going on in Gaza. I mean, Israel is stretched in a lot of different positions.
Yeah, the problem. Yeah, never mind what's going on in Gaza. Like, never mind what's going on in Gaza, where Israel's like slaughtering people by the tens of thousands, destroying hospitals, blowing up mosques, hitting people in shelters, forcing millions of people to flee once again for, the upteenth time. Like never mind that, as if it's not connected to everything else. When the other actors, Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, Ansar Allah, have all said, we want a ceasefire. That's our only goal.
Right.
But never mind that. Never mind.
And I also want to just reemphasize, I mean, I said this earlier, but with the Dahiya Doctrine, proportionality is one of the elements of international human rights law. So they are just very explicitly violating that and committing war crimes. It's just disgusting.
The problem you get is if something like this extends, which it's done, it makes it harder to put back in the box, to make it go, put it into a situation which is sustainable in peace in the region. And that is because, frankly, we kind of backed away and we said, well, there's pox on both sides of the house. Wrong. The way you handle that is you tell the entire region, you tell the world, we are behind the Israelis, full stop. There's a good side and a bad side, and we need to do it. Because we haven't done it, we've created.
Yeah, I wish Kamala were doing that more, like saying that we stand behind Israel no matter what. That doesn't send that message, I guess.
Created a seam, a gap. And adversaries look for seams and gaps, and they've basically done that. And so they say, okay, we can attack.
Oh, wait, let me rewind, sorry, because this is important to hear, and it's full. Okay, hold on.
Seam, a gap.
Oops, sorry about this.
Handle that is you tell the entire region, you tell the world, we are behind the Israelis, full stop. There's a good side and a bad side, and we need to do it. Because we haven't done it, we've created a seam, a gap. And adversaries look for seams and gaps, and they've basically done that. And so they say, okay, we can attack because the United States is not going to come back hard. And I think how you have to reset the fight, you have to tell everybody in the region who we're for and who we're not for. And we really haven't done that. So it's going to take a bit to put it back in the box because Hezbollah is going to keep attacking Iran.
So one thing is that we pointed this out. The United States loves saying there's no daylight between Israel and the United States, that they're these conjoined twins. But I think what Kellogg is upset about and sees as creating a gap is even paying lip service to Palestinian civilians. Like even acknowledging that people are dying who are civilians, to him, that's like, I guess, stabbing Israel in the back.
Yeah, exactly.
Is going to keep supporting the attackers in Hezbollah. I think the Hamas fight is virtually over. I think Israelis has kind of solved that problem. Look, when the leader of Hamas has said, if we have peace discussions and we have a ceasefire, I want to make sure that I'm not a target. Sinwar, nope. You started that fight. You're at risk right now. But I think that fight is virtually over now. The Israelis can pivot to Hezbollah.
Well, and we know those ceasefire negotiations will continue in the coming days.
Yeah, well, I don't see Israel pivoting. They're still continuing to, slaughter people, and as we talked about, target hospitals and try to force as many people from Gaza as possible, because that's their goal. Their goal is not to target Hamas; it's to destroy Gaza, make it uninhabitable, and that's why they've succeeded in having polio return. Right. A 10-month-old child was recently paralyzed for life because they contracted polio, which was previously eradicated, but now has returned thanks to Israel. So. This claim that they're pivoting and when their focus is ever on destroying Gaza and making life miserable for whoever survives, that continues. So we're running low on time, so we're going to get to a few more clips. Katie, think about anything more that you definitely want us to see.
Yeah, I mean, we probably have time for one more. So should we do the Bernie one?
Yeah, let's hear from Bernie.
A lot of these are really good. So what we can do is some of these will be on Thursday Throwdown because they're
okay. Well. If you want that, go to usefulidiots.podcast.com to subscribe and get the Thursday Throwdown. All right. So Bernie Sanders spoke at the DNC, said a couple of things, didn't criticize Joe Biden for fueling this mass murder campaign, said we need a ceasefire. But, that's kind of what everybody says they want a ceasefire. The question is how. And he didn't say we need to stop arming Israel. We need to use our leverage to force it to stop killing Palestinians. But and also, there was this incident where, as we covered last week, and our DNC wrap-up, Palestinians, Americans who wanted to speak on stage were denied. They wanted to come on, give a very restrained, measured speech, like saying we support Kamala Harris, but because they're Palestinian, the Democrats didn't want to go along with that because being platforming a Palestinian means platforming someone whose ethnic group is being exterminated with the Biden administration's support. So therefore, they had to be kept off the stage. So Bernie Sanders was asked about this.
Uncommitted delegates and other progressives have been demanding a pro-Palestinian speaker get a slot at the convention, and convention organizers refused. Was that a mistake?
Well, I happen to think, and my views in this area are very different from President Biden's views. I happen to think that we should not be giving another nickel to Netanyahu's right-wing extremist government. They certainly had a right to defend themselves against the atrocious Hamas attack. They never had the right, do not have the right, to go to war against the entire Palestinian people, kill 40,000, injure 80,000, and destroy the healthcare system, the educational system, and the civilian infrastructure. What's going on and lead to...
Bernie should explain what he means by Israel the right to defend themselves, because after October 7th, for like weeks and maybe months afterwards, he kept talking about Israel has the right to destroy Hamas, which Israel was saying they were doing while really destroying Gaza. And so if you're going to, so which right to self-defense is Bernie upholding here? If he's talking about, did Israel have the right to like stop people firing at its civilians on October 7th? Okay, yes, I think that's a legitimate self-defense right. But does Israel have the right to fire a single bullet into Gaza, a territory that it's occupied and besieged for decades?
Nope.
No, it doesn't. No, it does not. Occupiers do not have self-defense rights. They have obligations, and their obligations to end the occupation. And Bernie Sanders has never said that. So he's a little squishy on this whole thing of, he says Israel has the right to defend itself, and he says they don't have the right to go kill all these Palestinians. But what do they have the right to do, Bernie? Because he's never really spelled that out. And he should be clear on that if he's going to represent progressives, because he's disappointed a lot of people by taking so long to even call for a ceasefire, which he did not do immediately. He actually endorsed Biden's policy of letting Israel destroy Gaza under the name of destroying Hamas, which Bernie was on board with, unfortunately.
The starvation of thousands and thousands of children. American taxpayer dollars should not go to starve children in Gaza. That is my view. Others may disagree with me.
You see any daylight?
Isn't how terrible, and what a world we live in where it's others may disagree with the idea or the argument that American tax dollars should not be used to starve children.
Yeah.
Like he has to cover his ass there because he realizes that Biden and Harris disagree with him.
Yeah. It's a big tent. You know, it's a big tent party.
Yeah. Child murderers also belong. They deserve representation. Representation matters.
Between Biden's view on this and Kamala Harris's view?
Well, I hope so. I think, you know, in all fairness to the vice
he just asked if there's daylight between them.
President, you know, she's been the candidate for all of 1 month, and it's been a hell of a month. You have to organize the convention, select the vice presidential campaign, get out on the campaign trail. So they are still working through their policies. But I think at the end of the day, I hope.
Do we support mass murder or don't we support mass murder? That's them working through their policies. Do we
need some time to figure that out.
Do we support deliberately introducing diseases like polio and paralyzing children and destroying hospitals, destroying mosques, or do we not? Let's work it out.
Yeah, you don't want to jump. You don't want to be hasty when you're making these important decisions of whether to side with the murder of children.
There's no joy in haste.
Yeah, there's no joy in haste. I like that.
Very much. That the conclusion that will be reached is that Netanyahu and his right-wing extremist government, which has received tens of billions of dollars of aid from the U.S., should not continue to receive that aid unless there is a radical change in their policies to the people, to the Palestinian people in Gaza and in the West Bank, by the way.
No, they shouldn't receive that aid, period. But at least Bernie's talking some language of leverage, which is, you know, an improvement over everybody else. But again, he should have been saying something like that on the stage from the DNC, which was a much bigger platform. And, you know, if you're going to have people in your party, if you're going to accept being in a party where people support and are okay with mass murder, and you're claiming all opinions are welcome, then why don't you express your opinion when you have a platform? And Bernie Sanders and AOC both squandered that, which, you know, it was a disappointment to say the least.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great show. I mean, very depressing, very disturbing, but I think it went well. I think we had some great gems there. Thank you, Wadeworth. Also, Landrew asks, thank you for your generous super chat, Landrew. Wilson, can we show the Landrew one? I'm trying to highlight it, but it's not working. Since we are doomed with either candidate being a newly minted accelerationist, who is the faster slope down, Gen O side Kamala or Gen O side Trump?
Great question.
Great question. We're going to have to think about that, much like the Democrats had to think about whether or not they support child murder. But by the way, I just want to say something about my show tomorrow night, The Katie Halper Show, at youtube.com/The Katie Halper Show. People may be interested to know that one of my guests during the second half of the show is going to be, we covered this, right? A woman was who was wearing a hijab, who unfurled a Palestine sign, was hit on the head with a "We Love Joe" sign repeatedly by a Democrat. So she's going to be joining the Katie Halper Show tomorrow. And she's suing the DNC.
Yeah. You know, they should appropriate those signs because Joe Biden's in the past now. Change it to "We Love Joy."
Exactly. You just have to cross out the E and add the Y. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And we feel joy assaulting people who are trying to defend Palestinian rights in our party.
Yeah.
That's where the joy comes from.
Yeah. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this, and we will see you, of course, later this week when we release our episode. Please do become supporters if you're not already at usefulidiots.podcast.com, and that's where you can get not only extended interviews, but also our great Thursday Throwdown, and it's going to be great this week because we have some disgusting moments that we didn't get to in this stream, and we don't want you to miss that, so make sure you do that. And then we'll see you next Monday at Monday morning. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye.
Bye.